Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's tutorial is about the second version of this dress, which is the sewing tutorial. I remember asking you guys on my community tab which of the tutorials you would like to see first, and this had the lowest vote, so that's why I'm just posting it now. I'm sorry it took this long. I am really sorry. So let's get into the tutorial proper. In the last video, we're able to cut out everything on pattern paper, and now it's time to cut it on fabric. Before we are able to cut the top part, you would have to cut on bias, right, so that the cowl neck is going to fall the way it should fall. So you're going to pick one end of your fabric and fold it into a triangle or a cone. If you've watched any of my flat tutorials, you already know this. So I went ahead to fold it the way it should be, and the next step is to bring out my pattern paper and pin it on top of the fabric. Now, one thing to note is that we are not going to go straight and cut this pattern exactly as it is. If you go ahead to cut it that way, it will not be as deep as the cowl neck on the thumbnail. So to achieve the exact depth of cowl on the thumbnail, just watch closely how I place my pattern paper. I am also going to be, spreading it a little bit on the pattern paper. From the edge of the fabric, I spread it by 8 inches, okay, and this is going to work very well. As you can see, the cowl neck is very deep, so I had to add that extra 8 inches depth to give me the exact cowl neck depth on the thumbnail. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now to pin everything, after which I went ahead to just roughly cut out what I need so I can calmly cut out the exact thing I need, because this fabric moves around a lot. Like, it's kind of difficult to work with, not to scare you, but it moves around a whole lot, so you need to carefully pin it down, then calmly cut it out so that you can cut exactly what you need. Okay, as soon as you've cut and you've gotten to the edge, all you just have to do is to just straighten your hand, just like I did. Like, just make the line straight at this point. Just make it straight. That's all basically. Now, do not forget to notch that you're facing. Just notch it so that you know where it stops and where your shoulder starts from. Now I'm going to take off the pattern paper and allow you to take a look at how it should look. It looks really weird and funny. Just that's how it should look. The half cut area is going to have a V shape, but don't worry, that's what's going to give it the cowl neck or the depth. Once you fix it to your skirt, everything is going to be perfect. Okay, this is just how it looks. Now that I've arranged it, can you see that I wasn't lying? See, everything is looking good, but just know that you're on the right track. So let's do other things. Okay, remember, we cut out one piece of the front pattern. Now we're going to cut out 2 pieces of the back pattern because we're going to be needing 2. So I'm just going to proceed now to quickly cut out the back pattern. After cutting 2 pieces of this back pattern, the next thing I'm going to do is to cut out the front skirt pattern, and this is going to be cut on fold, which means we're cutting 1 piece but it's on fold. So I'm going to cut this out, after which I'll proceed to cut out the back skirt pattern, but we'll be cutting out 2 pieces of the back skirt pattern, not 1. After cutting 2 pieces of the back skirt pattern, the next step will be to bring out both the front bodice and the front skirt pattern. Look at both of them. No, both of them won't be having a dart. I'm going to fold the front skirt pattern into 2 and notch the midpoint. It's going to be needed when joining the 2 of them. Remember, the front part is not going to have any darts. The dart is going to be at the back. So now I'm going to go ahead to pin. So I'm going to proceed to match this V point to the notched point. Okay, that V point on the bodice, I'm going to match it to the notched point on the skirt, and I'm going to just pin everything down, and we're going to stitch that part using 0.5 inch seam allowance. Now let's work on the back part. I'm going to go ahead to take in the dart of each of the back skirt pattern as well as the back bodice. I'm going to take in the dart as well. Please bear with the lighting at this point. I didn't know that the lighting was this bright. It's going to correct itself soon. After taking in the dart, I'm going to join the upper bodice and the skirt part using 0.5 inch seam allowance. I'm gonna have to do that. Now the next step is to join our zipper allowance. Just hold it down. So I'm going to place them right sides facing each other, and I'm going to go ahead to mark out my zipper allowance, which is 1 inch. As you can see, I've placed them right sides facing each other, and I'm going to mark out my 1 inch from beginning to the end. After marking out my 1-inch zipper allowance to ensure that when I join my zip, everything is going to align properly, especially at the half cut area, that's at the waist area where we have that joining. So I'm going to place them properly and use my pin to hold them down so that by the time I join that part and fix my zipper, it's going to be straight. Can you see? So I'm just going to go ahead now to hold that 1 inch from beginning to the end. After doing that, the next step is to join the shoulders. Remember I told you guys to notch the facing at the beginning. I also went ahead to iron that my facing down. When joining the shoulder, you're going to join the shoulder without including that facing part. That's why you're going to work with the notch, so your shoulders are going to be joined on the notch. As you can see at this point, the facing is left out after joining. Can you see? So do not join your facing. That's why I said your shoulder joining should stop along the notch you made at the beginning of this video. Leave out your 1.5 inch facing. Okay, it is also important that you iron down that your 1.5 inch facing. As you can see, mine has that ironing mark. It's going to help you when you want to attach the collar, because we're about to work on the collar. In order to go ahead to attach your collar, you would need to measure your neck measurement, and I'm going to be starting from the back neckline. Okay, so I am going to go ahead to measure. I am going to start my measurement from one shoulder to the other shoulder. We have the left and right shoulder, so I'm going to start from the left shoulder to the right shoulder, and what I have there is 6.9 inches. After that, the next step is to determine how long I want the collar to be in front. Okay, if you remember, I told us to iron the facing for the front so that you have this ironing crease at that point. So I'm going to decide how long I want that collar to be, and from my measurement I would like it to be 3 inches. Remember that the front neckline has two parts, the left and the right hand side. So after measuring the right hand side, I will proceed to measure the left hand side, and that's also 3 inches. So 3 plus 3 inches gives 6 inches. So now I'm going to write out that 6 inches for the front, and remember the back neckline is 6.9, so everything gives me 12.9 inches. Now the next step is to go ahead and divide that 12.9 by 2, which gives 6.45. okay, so what I'm going to do now is to mark that 6.45 from the edge. Ensure that the edge is very straight. Just ensure that the paper you're using, the corners of the paper is straight. Okay, so after marking that 6.45, I am going to mark it again just to get a straight line. After marking that, I'll rule that into a straight line. Then I'll decide how wide I want my collar to be. I want my collar to be 3 inches wide. I'll also mark that 3 inches at the other end and connect the point. After connecting the point, I would like to give my collar a lovely shape, and I'm going to come out by 0.75. That's 3 1/4 at this point. I'm going to mark that. After which I'll then proceed to connect the point just like you see me doing, and I'll give it a lovely shape at this point. I don't want it to be pointed, I want it to have this curved shape. Okay, you can just maintain the pointy edge. Now I'm going to proceed to add 0.5 inch seam allowance around this pattern. Okay, we need the allowance, so just add yours. It was at this point that I realized that I went ahead to use the pointy edge like that. We're going to be cutting on fold using the arrow, and we're cutting 2 pieces of this. Okay, one more thing we need to do before our collar gets ready, and that is to go up at this point by 0.5 inch and connect to the edge. After connecting to the edge, just proceed to cut that out. Okay, now to cut on the fabric, what you need to do is you fold your fabric into 2, okay, because we'll be cutting on fold. So I'm going to try to find out the amount of fabric I'm going to need to cut out 2. After cutting that out, I'm going to fold that into 2 so I can cut out the 2 pieces at once. I'm going to go ahead to pin it down as fast as possible, and I'm going to proceed to add 0.5 inch seam allowance at this point, and I'll go ahead to connect the point, then proceed to cut out basically. Here is what we have after cutting out on the fabric. We have the 2 pieces of the collar. Okay, now the next step is to iron either estee or a very soft
interfacing. This is very important. Do not use a thick one. I have tried that before on one of my collars and the thing was just rumpling. So use a very soft one that is similar to a soft fabric. Okay, so guys, I've gone ahead to iron the stay on the fabric, and I've also gone ahead to fold in my 1/2 inch allowance at the end, as you can see, just on one end basically. So the next step now is to stitch. Before you head over to your sewing machine to stitch, you can just mark 0.5 inch same allowance, okay, round the collar before you head over to your sewing machine to stitch basically. So after stitching, I'm going to go ahead to trim off every excess allowance, paying more attention to the edge, this edge like this, okay, pay more attention to that part. Now I'm going to go ahead to flip the collar to the right side. For it to look good, head over to your ironing table and press it properly, okay. So now it's time to attach the collar to the neckline of the dress. The first step is to notch the collar, notch the midpoint of the collar. Then go ahead to note the midpoint of the dress, okay. It's even already indicated by this zipper allowance area, so that's what you're going to do. You will match midpoint to midpoint. First, you can use your pin to pin everything down. In fact, I would advise that you pin it down, okay. Please, I would advise that you watch closely at this point. You'll continue to pin it down until you get to this front part. For this front part, that's why I asked us to iron that part. You're going to pin directly on the crease that your iron gave to you. You are pinning on the crease at this point. So now I'm going to continue pinning, but I'm going to now pin on the crease that allowance, right? That 0.5 inch allowance, we're going to pin it on that crease that the iron gave to us. I didn't forward this part so that everybody will see how I'm pinning it down, because that's how I'm going to be stitching it on my sewing machine. From the position of my pin, you can tell that I pinned it directly on the crease. Pin on the crease. So go ahead and repeat what you did on the right side on the left side, okay. So after pinning, here's what the back looks like. You can see the pins directly on the crease. So now you go to your sewing machine and stitch using 0.5 inch same allowance. And yeah, my lighting is really the worst today. Please, you guys should bear with the lighting I have today. The next step is to go ahead and close this collar. You're going to put your allowance inside the way I'm doing, and we're using the stitch in a ditch method. I've explained that in a few videos that I did a skirt tutorial, how to how when you attach your waistband. Okay, just use that same stitch in a ditch method here. You're going to be stitching from the right side, okay, so that it captures the wrong side. This is what I mean, guys. You're going to be stitching in this ditch, and it's definitely going to hold the back. So make sure you put in the allowance inside. That's just the most important thing you need to do. Then you stitch inside that hole, so that if you look at that point, you will probably not even see any stitch. Do you get the point? Okay, so you can pin it down before heading to your sewing machine, okay, just like I'm doing.
The next step is to go ahead to cut out our sleeves, and for the sleeve I have already drafted out my basic sleeve pattern, okay.
The full length of my sleeve is going to be 24 inches long, but I want this part of the sleeve to be about 20 inches long, and I'm going to use 0.5 inch to join the top and 0.5 to join the down part. So I added extra 1 inch to that 20 inches to give me 21 inches. Now it's time to cut out the band parts, and here is what it looks like. I am going to straighten it out so you see how it was folded before cutting, okay. So you fold first, then fold the second time, and when I place it on my wrist, here is what it is supposed to look like, okay. So to know the wideness of your band, all you just have to do is to measure around your wrist, and I'd like to measure around the wrist in a way that it's easier for me to pull the tape from my hands. Can you see? And remember, this cloth is not mine, and the wrist of the person I'm working with is 10 inches. 10 divided by 2 gives 5. 5 plus 1 inch seam allowance makes it 6. The next step is to go ahead to iron stay or any interfacing of your choice, which is very soft, to it. I have gone ahead to iron the interfacing of choice to it. I've also gone ahead to fold 0.5 inch seam allowance on one end, okay. So what I did now is to fold it back and try to mark out the allowance area using my biro. You could use a fabric pen or chalk whatever you have that would be useful, just use it. In the joining of the sleeve to the band, the first thing you need to do is to bring your sleeve and place it wrong side facing up, then place this your band on top of it. But before you do that, you need to notch the midpoint of both your sleeve and the band. So like I said, the wrong side of the sleeve should be facing up while the right side of the band should be facing it. Okay, go ahead and repeat the same steps for the second sleeve. Okay, and I've gone ahead to stitch mine, and here's what I have. I'm going to close the sleeve just like you see me doing at the right side, and I'm just going to use a basic top stitch on top of this part, and that's all. I have gone ahead to attach my sleeve to the armhole area. Okay, so I've done that for the left side and I've done that for the right side. Okay, the next step is to fix the zipper, and I'm going to loosen this area where I want my zipper to start and where I want it to stop, basically using my razor blade. So I'm just going to quickly loosen that. Then I'm going to proceed to quickly fix my zipper, okay, the way I want it to be. One important thing to note, do not forget to backstitch the top part and backstitch the down part before fixing your zipper. I've gone ahead to fix my zipper, and here is what it looks like, guys. Now it is time to close the side seam using the allowance that we added. Okay, remember, for the front skirt pattern, when we were drafting in the previous video, we were able to remove the 1 inch dart allowance, but for the front bodice we did not. So that's what I'm cutting out at this point. Just go ahead to trim it out. That's just what you need to do. The next step is to go ahead to take your client's measurement on the dress so that you know where to stitch when you head over to your sewing machine, or just stitch the seam allowance you added, basically. But just wanted to make sure it's very fitted on the client. So after marking out all the points on the skirt part as well as the sleeve area, I'm just going to head over to my sewing machine and close up the seam allowance just the way they need to be, after which I'll proceed to hem the base of the dress. My lighting is very poor again, but please bear with me, it's going to be corrected soon. The next step is to measure and cut out the length of elastic needed for the skirt. The length of elastic needed should be equal to the original length of the skirt part. Remember, we added extra allowance to the skirt part to give us a side ruch. So the length of elastic that I cut out is 25 inches, okay, which implies that the elastic is shorter than the length of the skirt. Okay, in order to attach this elastic, you are going to open your side seam allowance at the wrong area, just like you see me doing. And you're going to start from the half length area and drag your elastic while stitching it on the sewing machine. Ensure that the stitch matches with the side seam so that it looks really neat. All you have to do is to just drag and stitch, and that is going to give you the ruch at that point. At this point, we've come to the end of this tutorial, and I'll see you in my next one. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.